Chester M. Southam, a world-renowned immunologist, oncologist, and professor, and also the man who transformed the face of medical research ethics forever. That brings us to the question, what exactly about Southam's work caused such an uproar in the medical research world? I first spoke with Beveridge Southam, Dr. Southam's granddaughter, to learn more about the man behind the image. So, I'm here in Boston to talk to Southam's granddaughter about Dr. Chester Southam's life. Wow, this is a really long driveway. So, do you remember anything about your grandfather? What can you tell me about him?
I don't remember him too well because he passed away when I was young. My grandfather got his medical degree from Columbia University after he started working in New York City. He received promotion after promotion because of his work on immunology. He became well known after the public learned about his research in the New York Times.
So, what exactly did Southam do that attracted the attention of the New York Times? Essentially, Southam injected HeLa cancer cells into patients, some of who had given consent and some who did not. Southam wanted to test how cancer injections would affect normal people, people with cancer, and people with other illnesses. Oh, hey there! I'm here at the beautiful Ohio State University to talk to a historian about Southam's studies at an Ohio penitentiary. Come on, let's go inside. Yeah, it's good. So, Southam did many studies, and one of his studies took place in Ohio at a prison. What can you tell me about that?
Okay, so at this prison, he injected 14 patients with live cancer cells, and all of these patients had advanced stages of cancer, and all of these patients had given their consent, which in some later cases he didn't end up giving consent, but in this one he did.
And how did the patients react to the cancer cells?
So, in some of the patients, the cancer cells grew into nodules that would last 4 to 6 weeks, and then they would eventually disappear.
As we have previously stated, Southam used HeLa cells, or cervical cancer cells, in his studies. HeLa cells came from an African-American woman named Henrietta Lacks, and after scientists discovered that they could grow these cells in culture, the cells were mass-produced for research without the consent of the Lacks family. I spoke with Leopold von Schwarzenegger of Oxford University to determine how the body would react to a cancer cell injection.
Well, to put it simply, your immune system recognizes that the cancer cells are a foreign entity and attacks these cells. First, lymphocytes detect the cancer cells, causing cells to produce antibodies, or proteins that attach to the enemy. The antibodies act as a label for the T cells, which come in to actually attack the enemy, and phagocytes clean everything up.
Other than his studies in Ohio, Southam attempted virotherapy by injecting patients who had terminal cancer with the West Nile virus. He wanted to see if he could train the virus to attack the cancer. And while there were some promising results, many subjects developed severe cases of West Nile fever. The world learned all about Southam's controversial studies when, in 1963, 3 doctors from Jewish Chronic Disease Hospital, Drs. Avir Kagan, David Leichter, and Perry Fursko, objected to the lack of consent in his experiments and reported him. He was found guilty of fraud, deceit, and unprofessional conduct and was placed on probation for a year. With Southam's allegations brought to light, the topic of consent and studies on minoritized groups were brought to the forefront of American society. Today, consent is more strongly regulated than ever. Patients participating in research studies must know exactly what will be happening, and the studies must be screened by the National Institute of Health before they can be carried out. Moreover, today researchers cannot get away with studies on minoritized groups like how Southam used primarily African-American inmates in his studies in Ohio. The allegations against Southam caused the National Institute of Health to open an investigation, and this investigation unearthed a plethora of research work lacking consent. In fact, in an infamous list of the 22 most unethical studies, Southam's studies placed at number 17. As for Southam, his license was suspended for a year so he could not practice at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, but he was soon after hired as the head of the American Association for Cancer Research. Today, we know such behavior would not be tolerated.